real-life Iron Man, the resurrector of the electric car, the mastermind behind SpaceX, and the visionary who dreams of Hyperloop. Elon Musk is a true icon. He will be joined on stage by the Irish Prime Minister and the wonderful Sherbin Pishevar and a fantastic Irish tech entrepreneur, Mark Little.
I think we could have no better guests with us to talk about the time we live in. I think, Elon, you once said about this is a great time to be alive as a creator. This is a time where the balance of power is in our favor.
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for a better time in history. Yeah, absolutely. I think people sometimes forget that, but it is, you have to say, realistically, when else would you want to be alive?
But it's also, I suppose, Taoiseach, a difficult time, right? It's a disruption. You have about the worst job in the world to some extent, don't you, in terms of trying to recover an economy that fell into the toilet. And now we're back at a point where you do feel something moving in this country, but it's still tough. A lot of people out there are very fearful of change.
Yeah. Well, it didn't just fall into the toilet, it got flushed out the other side. And it's been a long process to take it out of that tank, let me tell you, and shake it up and dry it off and put it on high ground. But I think it's an extraordinary privilege for us here in Ireland to have two innovators, entrepreneurs, thinkers about the future here at this Web Summit. And no matter what you do, it has to be about people at the end of the day. And as an island nation that has been traveling since the 5th and 6th century, we understand interdependence and the common thread of our humanity. We rely upon each other in so many ways. And I think that what's happened in Dublin this week has been quite extraordinary. The collegiality, the challenge, the bar, the understanding that it is from this kind of interaction of people like this that new ideas come for new ways of doing things to create that future that's actually coming at us and changing with bewildering speed. And that's why many of the young companies who are here in the RDS this week will explode in terms of their potential in the next 5 years. They've never been heard of. Their products, their ideas, the new ways of doing things are going to impact on the lives of hundreds of millions of people, just as has happened here already. So in that sense, it's the question that President Xi Jinping asked me when he came here from Washington. How do you build a sense of community in your country? Because they know about that. And as an island nation, we understand that. And it's to get that sense of community throughout our common humanity is where the challenge and the answers lie to the future.
Sure, and you have vested interest in this Web Summit in the sense that this has been very good to you in your business. Let me tell me a little bit about the last two Web Summits and what came out of it in terms of practical change in your life.
Ireland has actually changed my life, and I have a lot to be thankful for and grateful for, both for this nation and also for Patty and the Founders Conference and the Web Summit. 2 years ago, I flew here in a rush to meet Travis Kalanick at the summit and in Dublin at the Shelbourne. We met up, and he was the founder of Uber. I don't know how many of you have heard about Uber before. At the time, the company was 9,000 customers, 7,000 of them were in San Francisco. So it was still a very small company. And it was a hotly contested investment, lots of competition. If I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have won that investment. I wouldn't have had the blessing and the privilege to be involved. Signed the term sheet at the Shelbourne that night and closed that investment, and that was a transformational event, and it was a transformational company as well to be involved in.
And I believe the Cliffs of Moher, in particular, last year.
The following year, absolutely. The following year, I came together with my co-founder of Sherpa Ventures, Scott Stanford, who was at Goldman Sachs at the time. He headed up all of the global internet practice. And we got in a car that was arranged by an amazing man named Eamon O'Connor, who recently passed. And he's a great man. And we got in the car and we drove to the tip of Ireland to see his house in this little village. And at the Cliffs of Moher is where we came up and finalized the idea of Sherpa. So those 2 years have been a really transformational time. And Sherpa is a whole new way of thinking about how to invest in companies and help entrepreneurs.
Mark, isn't it a funny thing in a way that here in this building is where the Young Scientist exhibition has taken place for the last 50 years. And here you have the Web Summit this week, which is another new direction for all of that. I think it's absolutely fitting that this is where it should be, because it's the next platform.
I think, Taoiseach, it's fair to say that we just can't take for granted the scale of this remarkable moment. I mean, one of the super connectors of Silicon Valley sitting beside me on my right, and somebody, and Elon, I had to go to find a quote from one of your former employees, which I thought really summed up a lot of what you have achieved. He said, he is Werner Braun Braun, Howard Hughes, Henry Ford, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and every other badass rolled into one.
Yeah, that's probably a bit generous.
But talk about generosity. Now, you are moderately busy running $2 billion companies that are stretching the boundaries of space and time and energy. And you came to Dublin. What was the attraction of this event this time?
I understand there's really going to be a great party tonight.
I think you missed it. It was last night.
Yeah, no, I wanted to come back to Ireland for a while. I was last time I was here was about a third of a century ago. I was like 7 years old, and had a great time as a kid. Been wanting to come back for a long time, so this was a good opportunity to do so.
Don't leave it so long next
You
time.
keep coming back here, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We need you. We need you.
We were reminding Elon about the fact that Henry Ford came here to set up his car company.
Yeah, I was here with the Tesla car, which I've just had the privilege of getting a short spin in here. Extraordinary vehicle. Extraordinary. When you lift the bonnet, as we call it in Ireland, they've got a trunk in the front and a trunk in the back.
Right.
And you can make it into an even bigger vehicle if you wish. But it's quite extraordinary. But Henry Ford started off his motor industry in Cork at the turn of the last century and was here for 60 years. So if you're looking for a good base, we certainly give you an opportunity. Seriously, let me say this to you. If you're going to come to Europe with Tesla, we will compete with the best.
Okay.
So if you're going to do that, you give us a chance. We'll give you
Absolutely.
a fair hearing, and our workers will not let you down, believe you me.
All right.
Okay, let's keep that between ourselves. I just want to also could we get some water up here? I don't want our guests to die of dehydration before we get to the end of our session here, but if we can get some water on stage. But I just want to go back, Elon, to your years growing up when, obviously, 12 years old, I think you sold your first video game that you had programmed.
Yeah.
But at what point in your teenage years was there a light bulb moment where you said, I really do want to change the world?
Teenage years, maybe I was probably like 21 or something like that. So it was like a little beyond teenage years. I mean, when I was a teenager, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I like playing video games and I like writing software, and so I thought, well, maybe I'll professionally write video game software. That seemed like a pretty fun thing. And then when I was in college, I just started thinking about, well, what's going to most affect the world? And there were actually I thought there were 5 things that I thought would most affect the world, 3 of which I thought would definitely be positive things to solve, 2 of which are slight question mark. And then as it turned out, I was able to get involved in all 3 of those things, being the internet, sustainable energy, and space.
Now, obviously, you revolutionized online payments, but after PayPal, other innovators might have moved on to the same area to have another success. You chose a completely different set of challenges to address. I mean, space. What was the thinking there? Why didn't you just follow your money back into online commerce, for example?
I guess the thing that motivated me there was that I kept expecting that there'd be a manned mission to Mars. That was the continuation of the dream of Apollo. We went to the moon, then there was supposed to be a base on the moon, there were supposed to be space hotels, there were going to be human missions to Mars. And year after year, that stuff didn't happen. And at first I thought, well, maybe people have lost the will to do that. And I sort of came up with this idea to do a mission to Mars to kind of get people excited about that stuff again. But I came to the conclusion that I was actually wrong about that assumption, and there's plenty of will, and it's really about making sure that there's a way. If people think there's a way to do it without bankrupting the economy, I think there's plenty of will. And so that started SpaceX to try to improve rocket technology and just to do as much as we can to advance that towards eventually, I'm not saying we'll take people to Mars, but we want to try to move things forward as much as possible.
What I'm fascinated by was you started out to try to get people excited again in space, and then you ended up with this fact. There are only 4 entities that have ever sent a space capsule into space and brought it back: US, Russia, China, Elon Musk.
I have a lot of really great people at SpaceX. Yeah, and we've got an awesome team at SpaceX, and actually I think one of the things that isn't recognized is that, there's way too much attention paid to me, and it's really, that's not right. I mean, people want to focus, they want to identify with an individual, and so that sort of naturally is what occurs, but, there's a super talented group of people at SpaceX who make it happen.